Hi, Tim here with Jason Lippert, President and CEO of LCI Industries, a leading supplier company with 15,000 team members across the globe. Jason is also a board member of Quanex Building Products Corporation. How are you doing today, Jason?
Hey, how
And
are you?
hey, would you mind kicking things off with a brief introduction on your background?
Look, I've been in business for 27 years. I've been with the same company. I started welding at this business and learned a lot from working on the front lines of the business with our team members and learning how to build our products. I've been running the business since 2003. We've morphed from a mobile home components company to an RV and marine and aftermarket business with some smaller businesses and commercial vehicles and manufactured housing and building products. And we do some business in Europe these days. So when I started with the company, it was about just under 100 million. And today we're over 4 billion with 15,000 team members, like you said. And the thing I'm probably most proud of is we went on a culture journey 10 years ago and just started taking small steps. And 10 years later, we've become a better company, but most importantly, one that other businesses are looking up to learn some things around how to build better cultures in business because it's really, really difficult and better leadership models in business. So I'm really proud of that. And our people are really proud of it. And I think we've got established a leadership academy a couple of years ago, and we've got 60 different businesses that we're helping take similar steps that we took 10 years ago to develop better cultures, which ultimately, we say businesses can be a force for good around here all the time. And if we can help other businesses improve cultures, it improves lives and of the team members and ultimately their families. That can be pretty far reaching and impact a lot of people and transform a lot of lives.
What would be your top three principles for success or leadership?
To be a little bit more specific, about success in leadership in business or just success as an individual leader?
You could take it either way. I've gotten both, and there's some commonalities between the two I've noticed.
Yeah, for sure there is. Well, I think, what we've learned from the business perspective is that when everybody can be aligned on values, there's a lot of good values you could pick, and every business might have similar core values or leadership values, but they all differ a little bit. But if you land on some that you can align everybody on, I think that's the most important thing. Part of it's just being courageous. There's a lot of things you have to do as a leader in a business that's really working to improve individual leadership and improve business culture. There's a lot of things you have to do and things you arguably don't have to do in a lot of businesses that don't care about it, that just care about performance or the bottom line or the results. You got to have the courage to jump out there and work on yourself and improve yourself through a leadership action plan or improve yourself through just trying to, hey, how am I going to be better this year than last year? But if you look at courage, if you look at servant leadership, I think serving your teams is an important principle. You can't earn the trust of your teams and build really good relationships with your teammates if you're not serving them. If you serve them, you'll build trust. If you build trust, you'll build a relationship. If you build a relationship, your team can do just about anything. But to me, it starts with serving your team. If you want to get them to trust you, that's one of the areas I'd probably encourage people to start. And then effective communication, that's another one of our leadership values. And I think people get communication wrong all the time. They perceive that they're good at communicating when there's a lot of gaps and holes and opportunities. So I encourage people to just, hey, what does it mean to be a communicator? It's not just moving a production schedule from the front office to the front lines for us. It's making sure you're coaching, you're encouraging, you're explaining things in the detail, you're listening. That's a big piece that people miss on effective communication is just the listening part of it. Listen to your people. Don't do all the talking. Listen. Those are my big ones: courage, effective communication, and servant leadership. If I had to pick three.
All right, this is where it gets fun. We're going to take these apart and turn them into some practical how-tos.
Sure.
So let's start with courageous. How would you turn that into a practical how-to that you can sort of build into your actual behavior?
Courage is, to me, is like where it's most practical is just practicing improving your leadership. To do that, you've got to have courage to do new things in your leadership with your people that tomorrow that you weren't doing yesterday. Those are the things that you want to work on, whether it's a communication piece or you want to serve your teams more, or you're just trying to be more coachable yourself. Ask people for advice, ask people for 360 reviews so you can always figure out where your opportunities and deficiencies are. So being courageous to me means just stepping into leadership and doing things in your leadership to evolve it to the next level. To me, you can't do that without being courageous.
I'm hearing challenge yourself, and
Yeah.
part of it's like doing some new things, but also almost like taking in the bad. Whereas a lot of people, your inherent
Yeah,
nature is not to take the criticism or
that's
avoid it
right.
at times because we want to hold ourselves in good light. But you're looking at it as more welcome it, identify where those blind spots are.
Right. And if you don't ask where your blind spots are, I don't know how you figure that out. So part of that being courageous is just asking for the reviews, asking for the feedback, and keep digging it. Hey, where can I improve? If you don't know where to improve, it's really hard to evolve your leadership to the next level. And like you said, most people don't want to hear the bad or maybe the negative or the opportunities. They want to focus on the good and what's going well.
But that's where you find the areas you can actually improve when you can get
Yeah.
that feedback. What if you get a lot and you realize there's a lot of areas to work on? How do you know
That's
where to
not
focus?
it's not a bad thing. We tell people all the time, you don't need to get to the pinnacle of leadership, which it's always continuing journey. So there's no top, but it's not a race. Just take steps and make progress, improve. That's all we're looking for. If you're improving week to week, quarter to quarter, year to year, then we know in 5 years you're going to be a much better leader than what you were yesterday.
Okay.
So just make
So
improvement.
identify these areas that you can challenge yourself, find the areas you can improve, but start somewhere. You don't have to tackle all this at once. It's an ongoing journey and plan it that way.
A lot of people just don't have a written plan. So write your plan down and make it simple and just talk about your goals in your plan. Talk about how you want to be seen different as a leader in a year than what you are today. And if you're writing that stuff down, you're probably more likely to achieve some of those things rather than a lot of people, they just kind of, I think too many leaders today, they just walk into work and it's a firefighting contest. It's like, what fire do I have to fight today? And then they totally consume doing that. And they're not focused on, hey, look, how do I improve the foundation of my leadership? And I don't think you can do that unless you take time to think about it and develop some kind of written plan, even if it's really simple.
What
That's
does that
better than
look
nothing.
like? Is it a journal? Is there a prioritized list? What does that look like?
I don't think there's a wrong way. I think you can do a prioritized list. I mean, we have a little card for all of our leaders in the business, and ultimately it'll be for all of our team members. Because even if you're not leading people, if you have an action plan and you're leading yourself better, even if you don't lead people, I think that's better for the teams and the business. But we ask our leaders today on a simple card to write a few things down on how they're going to improve their own leadership, how they're going to improve their team, and how they're going to improve the business. If you've got a few things you're focused on, and I like the simple side of that, don't make it overwhelming. So that he's going through pages of stuff on a weekly basis, as busy as life and work is, it's hard to keep track of all that. But if you have a few simple things that are going to make you better through the course of the year so that you're a better leader at the end of the year, I think that's the goal, for at least for us.
Let's talk about servant leadership. How do you turn that into a practice?
To me, that's an easy one to practice because your teams will notice it if you're doing more of that. Whether it's serving in the community, that's certainly, I look at it in terms of hours. How many hours are you serving the community and bringing your team members with you? We monitor that, or that's a metric for us in our company. But when it comes to your team, it's almost really easy to write a few things you're going to do, to serve your teams like differently tomorrow than what you did yesterday. But you just got to write some of that stuff down. How are you going to reach out to them? It might just be spending more time with them. It might be sitting them down and just listening to how they feel you can serve the team better in a whole, not just the individual. But then, being self-aware enough to know if you develop a good relationship with each one of your team members, you probably learn enough about them to know how you can go serve them a little bit better. You just have to be really intentional about it. So there's no formula for it. It's just who's the person, how well do I know them? Sometimes it's just getting to know them better so you can develop the relationship so you can serve
Yeah.
them better in the future.
Yeah, I think this is one new leaders struggle with because you almost default to a top down, I got to tell people what to do and really manage them, where the servant leader model completely different. You're just focusing on what people actually need to be successful.
Right.
I think that what you first alluded to is start with listening and then,
Build a relationship. You build a relationship, there's authenticity there, and people know when you're really trying. But it's hard to serve somebody if you don't really know them or you haven't built a relationship or a trusting relationship. So I'd start with building the relationship.
yeah, no, I like that one. Just build a relationship and then find the ways to help the team. Let's talk about effective communication.
Like I said, I think there's so many different slices of that because part of it is there's so many different ways to communicate. But if I think about it kind of from 50,000 feet, it's probably get away from the text and the email on all communications. And again, you want to build a healthier relationship or more solid relationship with your team members. You get out there and have the face-to-face, in-person communication with those team members. I think that's a good start because it's hard to go back and forth in emails and texts and answer questions and know exactly where the other person stands. You lose a lot through some of that translation, I think getting in person is important. I think recognizing your team members is a part of communication. I think that's what a lot of our teams and team members miss today because we're moving so fast and there's so much going on. It take time to recognize your team members. I think that some of the big polls that are done around engagement and culture show that there's a lack of recognition and celebration for team members that are doing great things around the business. So I think if you can take time, and that's part of serving too, that speaks right into serving your team, just selfishly and intentionally recognize people for doing great things around your team or the business. I mean, there's a lot of different listening's the other one. Take time and listen to your teams and just be intentional about it. Sometimes just go and maybe say a few things to start a meeting, but let somebody else carry the rest of the meeting. And again, part of it's you're working on their leadership too. If you're trying to get someone else to speak and draw some things out, I think that bolsters other people's leadership and interest in leadership. If you're encouraging them to help play more of a part, as opposed to everybody comes to the meeting, they just expect you to do this the whole time. And you're just conditioning them to listen where you're not listening at all. So those would be a few things off the top, I think, that would improve a team
It
member.
can be hard for some people, especially a lot of times you tend to have a nature of agenda you want to push and a goal you want to accomplish
Right.
that you got to put that to the side and really concentrate on
Yes,
listening.
but really, how are they going to get better at leadership and participation and communication on their end if you're not coaching? To me, it's just kind of a way to coach people into becoming a better communicator and a better leader. But again, if everybody just sits there and that's all they do every meeting and they just listen, that's not really compelling for a lot of people. If I'm on your team and I want to grow, but I'm not participating all the time because the leader is always doing the talking and the directing and the guiding, it just seems like a less fulfilling place to be. But it is hard.
Is there tips on becoming a better listener?
You just have to be really intentional and self-aware. It's not hard. You just have to be intentional about making time to listen and get people's opinions. Go into a meeting being ready to ask questions to 2 or 3 people, because that's how you get them to talk. You don't have to say, hey, go ahead and just lead the meeting. I mean, that might intimidate some people. But if you ask people questions, they're generally inclined to give an answer. And then that gets them talking. And then you usually learn some things when other people are talking. You don't learn when you're talking. You learn when other people are talking.
What
So
about in terms of creating a communication framework in your company and really creating a way that makes people comfortable to share their ideas or point out problems? Is there an approach? I feel like that's one of the important things you're ultimately trying to achieve across your company. Have you found any things that have been helpful in achieving that?
yeah, so I mean, a couple things. We're in manufacturing. 14,000 of our 15,000 people are on the front lines of our business making products for RVs and boats and other types of vehicles. So for me to have an effective situation like that, we need to be in front of our teams. If you're going to get that kind of collaboration and development, you need to make time with the teams. But also, I feel that those types of activities, you need to have people that are engaging the frontline team members in a business like ours to help them develop as leaders. They're not just going to do it on their own. So whether it's the leader doing it or whether you've got other resources allocated to help people understand what leadership could look like, how to develop them and help them with an action plan and help them to grow. You need resources there because the direct supervisor, the direct leader doesn't always have time to do all the leadership development. They got a full-time job on their own. So it's carving out time in the business for resources in the business to be able to work with people to grow and develop them.
That's a lot of work. You're being proactive and just really giving people the opportunity to speak up and be heard. What's the best mistake you've made? And this is just a fun question that we
Yeah.
ask just to get a good story.
That's a mistake I've made. I would say that early in my career, it was a lot of doing and self-action. And, I would just tend to say, hey, look, I'm going to follow me. Well, I realized over time that the bigger our company got, everybody else has got a lot of great ideas. And if you just take time and sit and listen, I wouldn't know if it's a mistake. I just did it for a long time and we'd probably be a lot farther ahead today if I wouldn't have woken up to that fact. But part of that's just deciding that you're going to do culture differently in the company too. And when you do that, everybody needs to be involved. But I don't know if I can answer the question. What's yours?
What's my best mistake? I got kicked out of undergrad. I failed technically out of undergrad. So that's
Really?
yeah, I was really short attention span, struggled with ADD. I could get through high school by reading the books twice, but when I got into college, there was lecture-based classes and I couldn't pay attention for the life of me.
Wow.
I just remember failing like Art 101 and I think I failed like Chem 101 and then next thing you know I got the letter that said you've been academically discharged.
And then what did that lead to?
I ended up working for an uncle in the South Side, just bare minimum wage. They're doing like starting. He just wanted me to wash dishes. And then
We got a better education there, right?
I learned the work ethic. A year
Yeah.
later, I ended up managing 2 stores for him. Then ended up getting a real estate career, which didn't work out, but I got into selling businesses. built a career from there, and
Awesome.
I got to where I'm in today. So looking back, I don't, it's the best mistake.
That's great.
So I don't know. I think you'd have a good story too.
Yeah, I just have to think about it. I know I've made a ton of mistakes. I'm just trying to think about you kind of learn from making mistakes. There's a lot of good ones in there, probably.
Very cool. No best story. How about this question? What's the one message or advice you would give to the next generation of leaders?
Find a mentor. I did not do that until 15 years into my career. And if I would have done that a lot earlier, it would have been more helpful. So find a mentor, ask a lot of questions. You just learn faster that way than just trying to do it on your own. And it's good to want to pave your own way and kind of be entrepreneurial, but at the same time, bring multiple people that have been there, done that along for the ride. And I know a lot of people say that, but it's very true.
Man, thanks, Jason. Hey, I appreciate your time today.
Oh, absolutely.
Bye bye.